let's start with, what would you say is your best or worst or favorite NPC voice that you do?
Oh, I don't know. You got to put me in a place there. I mean, it just comes out like this. It's pretty natural. That's about it.
Yes, it is very natural sounding voice. I am very impressed the way you just immediately begin to flow with it. It is a very good thing. It is very beautiful. I love it.
It usually helps when you're choking on something too.
See, you guys are really good at it.
See, my easiest voice to do is the like high pitched kind of old woman or a bit of an old man. I can talk very easily as a forgetful old man because that's kind of what I'm becoming. So that's quite natural, but
it's perfect.
And so yeah, it's kind of the, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, yes, why don't you sit down and we can find something nice to make in the pot for you. that kind of thing. But my default is often a bit of a rough voice. But I find I always need water when I do that one.
My default usually just ends up being just elevating my voice a little bit, just bringing up the pitch a little bit, and I hate it. But my favorite ones are probably the fact that I have an NPC in one of our campaigns that's a halfling who's just anxious all the time, and so he's just I don't really know what to do, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm so useless. So stuff like that. Or my favorite, and I'm not going to do it right now because it sounds just terrible. Is
well, that's the one that I want.
Well, it's here's the thing. Any time that there's like some sort of like hellish or fiendish being, some kind of demon or something, I go really into it. And my producer has been like, David, it sounds so scary. I'm like, perfect. That's what I was going for.
So maybe at the end of the show, David maybe by then David will be warmed up enough to do that.
Right. One. I gotta mentally prepare myself for it.
You know, I'm jealous. Every time I go for demon, I end up with Dr. Claw from the old Inspector Gadget commercials. Cartoons.
Yeah. Nice.
I will eat your soul, Gadget.
Yeah, that's it. Gadget.
Awesome.
I asked my players this because I don't know what my go-to is. You know, I just kind of like pick one, and they all said that I do the Northern England tavern keeper a lot. Sounds a bit like this. He's from up north. He runs a tight tavern. He slings out the drinks.
Sounds like one of the guys from Monty Python. Which guy? I'm having a hard time figuring out which one.
Oh,
no, there's one of them from Yorkshire. It could be him, but that's one I do a lot. I really like the Irish accent. That one's really fun when you talk really fast and you kind of go with it, sing song you like. I love the Russian accent too. So I there's so many to choose from. It's kind of hard to decide sometimes. Like I'm like, all right, which one am I gonna pick today? So.
Yeah. So when you're faced with a situation where you don't have, where you almost like forget to think about it ahead of time, what voice do you end up just going to with your gut?
I kind of like the Clint Eastwood cowboy gruff voice, or I'll just default to like Queen's English. You know, very proper. Depending on what type of person they are, they will sound like this. That's probably my default is what I think, but my players say otherwise. So
I actually had somebody teach me. It's called a 3x3 rule. So if you're just looking for really quick voices, you can. It's either from the back of the throat or the front of the throat, which kind of determines that like pitch, and then you go across the top of the mouth or across the tongue, which kind of brings out the finesse in the voice, and then as you you can either make it rough or you can make it soft, and that kind of determines the masculinity and feminine behind it. So if you're looking for a very small young lady that might have some sort of, and you can just kind of lead into it, or you can just turn around and talk like this, it's just very simple different ways that you can throw stuff. I hate it when my players make me do female voices.
I do what you do, right? I just kind of talk a little bit higher.
You just soften everything up, and it just comes out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've made I hate doing the female voices as well because I'm just bad at it. At least I think so. But I also right, exactly. I try really hard to diversify the NPCs that do show up. So I do have like a lot of female characters that show up, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm doing this all the time. Of like, hi, hello there. Welcome to the Arcane Keep. So happy to see you. Oh, you're jumping out the window again. That's great. All right. Like, and just trying whatever I can for it. And it's like, I try to focus more on like personalities though. Because that typically is more memorable. Since I don't feel like I'm the best with voices, if I focus on the personality, at least that gets pulled across. Because sometimes I'll end up doing the same voice for like 50 different characters.
It's because you just give them a giant scar on their face, something for them to look at versus listening to you, and you're fine. Like,
well, what I typically do is I pull out a marker and I just I just draw on my face, and then that will be like, oh, that's the character that David like went insane.
Yeah. And the next day at work, everyone knows that you had D&D the night before because you still haven't quite got it.
Because you accidentally grabbed the Sharpie. Yeah.
Look, I'm incredibly grateful that I'm still working from home because no one knows now.
Nice.
No one sees your Ziggy Stardust.
right. Dude, I have so much makeup. And glitter just so ready.
So have you ever had a situation where the voice that you choose affects how the players interact with that character? So for instance, I was using an NPC generator that I made, and it ended up being a young girl who was curious but bold, and her interest that I rolled was that she was interested in drinking. And there was a bard in the party who always had wine. I channeled all my knowledge of teaching 10-year-old kids for the last 20 years, took all the annoying parts of them, all the questions that they pummel you with throughout the day, and I put them into this character. Why are you doing that? Oh, what are you doing? Oh, what's going on here? Oh, can I come along? And
why?
And so this character was kind of meant to be a bit of a throwaway at first, but she ended up becoming part of the adventure because of her personality and because of how they dealt with that. Have you ever had a situation where you inadvertently created something bigger than you thought it was going to be because of the voice that you chose?
I had a NPC who was basically a vendor, and he was the kind of guy who would get you anything. And just his sheer attitude was so popular with characters. Every time they went to town and they found a town and they had him, and he was basically the scummy, distrustful guy who was trying to sell you stuff from out of the back of a wagon in an alley. But he got so loved that campaigns I was a player in, the DM would go, as you're walking down an alley, and then just stares at me and like, oh, I'm not a player anymore. All right. And guest NPC'd in games I was playing to sell people stuff they didn't need.
Well, that's a golden opportunity for a player, though, isn't it? Like, oh, I'm going to say, I'll cut you a deal.
I got some nice stuff.
2 gold. You know?
Sell your stuff whatever you want. Yeah.
Right.
You might look a little crazy at the table, but you got it.
Yeah.
Recently, I had a gnome who was like the high judge of this city, but he had gone completely crazy, and he had this book that he was writing in, and he said that the master was writing back to him. You know, someone was communicating with him through this book, and so I tried to channel my best Cicero from Skyrim with a little twist.
Yes.
And so he sounded a bit like this, and he was talking to the master in the book, and the master has to tell me things, and I have to do them. And so they immediately were like, well, we're going to shoot him. We're going to kill him. And so I had to jump in their lap and like grab onto someone's arm to make sure that they didn't kill this poor little helpless gnome because, you know, I didn't want them to kill him off because he was too fun. But yeah, they definitely like were like, okay, he's crazy. We got to kill him now. And that's all just because of the voice, you know.
That's fun. So Kate 5CZ9 asked, how do you do monster voices without hurting yourself? Sam, you had a bit of a tip there. Maybe can you elaborate on your
learn from metal singers? Like
Yes.
Nice.
They have found the art of being able to breathe properly, and that's what it comes down to. Is most of the time you're just exerting too much air, and it's ripping your vocal cords, which is what causes them to hurt. So it's learning how to breathe properly. So it's like, it's like whatever you want, whatever creature that was. Like,
I like that creature. I'm really into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like the high pitched shrieks, like I do it, but my daughter's like, right next door, so I won't do it. But it's just like, it's all like that control with the throat and the breathing. That's just what it comes down to. So like, there's plenty of YouTube videos that you can watch just to learn how metal singers give out those deep vocals that they do.
Yeah.
And that just transfers into creatures. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty simple.
It eventually, all the life lessons you learn somehow make their way back to D&D.
Yep.
Of course.